Next item on the agenda, Ridge Road Development Concept located at 682 Ridge Road. The applicant is not being presented. It is requesting sketch plan review associated with 3 potential development concepts for an 11.80 acre parcel located in an MC medium intensity commercial district under section 269-5 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening. Al LaRue, McMahon LaRue Associates. John Gabrielli is with me tonight. As requested, we decided that the best approach was to decide how to develop this property was to create 3 different sketch plans. One that showed commercial out front, which is part of the zoning code, is commercial. And then, because the neighbors are more to the back and we're not, we decided to do a sketch plan showing 4 residential 10-unit structures, apartments. So then if I figure out how to get to the next one, I can minimize. Nope. This way over here. Look at you. This is nice. I like this.
It is.
And then we decided, well, if we want to design, if the town is interested in just commercial, then this B plan has just that, and the various buffers and that sort of thing. So that was the B plan, and again, the same frontage up on Ridge Road with the commercial buildings, they're the same. And there's the main front building is very similar. There's one right next to John's dealership, Marina Dodge, so it's very similar to that. So then concept C is all residential with multifamily. So that's our that's the mix, and we're looking for input and what the board would like, and what's your pleasure, that sort of thing.
Well, we did look at this one day. We were all together there.
Yep.
Whatever you do in the front, remember we were talking, that drops, I'm sure you're aware of it now, that drops right down.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that flood study right now.
Yeah,
We still think it's, as we discussed, there's going to be about, I think Brian said about a foot, actual flood, foot instead of the 7 feet.
10 inches. It's 10 inches.
10 inches in that regard. So we're going through that plan right now, and we're preparing the report and whatnot for submitting to FEMA for the change in the floodplain.
Well, the zoning is commercial.
Yes.
Okay, there's not a whole lot of commercial happening, in my opinion. I'll just give my opinion. There's not a whole lot of commercial. It'd be nice to have the front piece be commercial, but with residential in the back, if that commercial was something that addressed the project, so to speak, that would be good.
Can you elaborate? What do you mean address the project?
Well, in other words, a little convenience store, something that would, the people in the back could go to or whatever, you know what I mean, that type of thing. Other than that, I just think residential is going to be less impact than.
So maybe give the board a little background, because the chairman and Josh have had a chance to sit with myself and Al and Brian. We acquired the property from Mr. Harry Meyer, who owned it since 1973, just before the end of last year. We bought it as a long-term potential investment. We're looking at what the first thing we were addressing is obviously the fact that the whole floodplain, and it's something that hadn't been addressed in that area, for well over 50 years. A lot of the data that Brian is looking at dates back to quite a ways ago. So and what he's shown and what he had shown to when we bought it was that the numbers were significantly off in terms of the impact based on I think a 500-year storm. He could probably better explain it than I can, but so that was one of the first things, and then we started looking at what the potential for development was, and the fact that I think, as you alluded to, Tony, commercial right now has become more challenging. I think my partners and I kind of look at this as a long-term potential investment. Obviously, we've been in the town now for a long time in the automobile business, but we were looking at something for as a long-term investment. And the multifamily residential, we thought, would probably make the most sense for that property. It's it borders to the south residential, and then even back years ago up on Ridge Road, that was all residential or farmland. So from a commercial standpoint, it's still potentially an option. I think if we were to do that, it would probably be more if we had a potential tenant and at least an anchor tenant that was interested. But tonight, I thought we, based on the conversation we had in meeting with yourself and the town engineer at the time, and Josh and the supervisor, we thought we'd bring you the board here 3 different concepts to see if we could get some input as to what, from a planning standpoint, would be more favorable, and specifically would cause a change of use from commercial to multifamily. But I think that I would hope would be acceptable.
We understand that it's a commercial zone right now. So if there's a residential is not permitted in a commercial zone, there would have to be a special accommodation for that. So we understand that.
Yeah,
It's back and it's tucked away, and I'm looking at all 3, and I'm trying to, like, if you're driving down Ridge Road in a somewhat commercial area, and see a multi-family, building, housing.
well, they
So I,
Down low too.
yeah, well, no, I'm just saying when the option that is all residential.
Right.
And I can see how the option of all commercial would be problematic because it's big and you have big buildings and keeping them occupied might be a challenge, which is why I like the option of the mixed use having commercial in the front, because that kind of doesn't stand, it would just, the housing wouldn't stand out as odd on Ridge Road. I think I'm trying to, and then the housing is kind of down and tucked in the back.
Okay.
So it almost reminds me of the preservation trail. So you got like their housing, but they're kind of, they're out tucked in the back, and you got the dentist office around it and stuff. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Okay.
That seems to make the most sense to me. I imagine there has to be maybe engineering work or whatever. I'm just imagining fire trucks trying to get back there and turning around and all of that stuff, but I know this is just a concept.
Yeah, we know what the code is for fire access, and that this complies with it right now, the mixed
Okay.
use. It's sort of a hybrid, and, just, one of the things that this does provide is, if there are small shops in a smaller building, ice cream shop or whatever, that people can walk to and, or get some groceries, and not have to go out on Ridge Road, because sometimes Ridge Road is a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Al, what's the width of the property across? I'm looking at what you're showing as a commercial building up there. Yeah, what's your frontage right there along Ridge?
Hold on.
I guess 400 or 500 feet. Well, anyway, the reason I'm asking that is because if that was, it wouldn't have to be some sort of a big commercial building, something that's commercial along the road to stay in tune with what's there now, commercial.
I think it's about 300 feet.
300 feet? Okay.
Yeah, it's in that range.
Kind of looked at that plaza that's on the corner next to the store.
Yeah.
They built, that was about a 1.2 acre parcel.
Mhm.
It kind of was left over after they realigned Shoecraft
Yeah.
with Hard Road.
Mhm.
And, that seems to have worked fairly nicely the way it has.
Well, see, that looks good. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Something like that.
Something like that I thought would go nice up in the front,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
in the back,
Residential.
to put commercial buildings back there probably wouldn't make sense, but
No, that's the problem with that piece of land. So somebody owns that piece of land, what is it gonna do? I mean, you can't even farm it back there, like Harry did.
Yeah.
He had a little garden back there, but,
Yeah.
not a whole lot usable.
Actually, you mentioned that this is the property that's just west of Country Max, right?
Yes, it is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the property when Country Max came in and they had to do a whole bunch of work with the floodplain,
Yeah.
raising of the site, and you mentioned that too. But this parcel here is also one of the few parcels, actually the only parcel left on the Ridge Road that if you look at the Monroe County inventory of ag parcels, it's in the ag district. So it's a designated agricultural parcel in the town of Webster. It is listed, so it's something that you're gonna have to address as looking at the project going forward.
There we go.
There's also, there's one of the things that came up with Country Max was there was a strip of 100-foot wide land behind Country Max. It's actually part of it's town property, it's considered park. It's supposed to be green space between Country Max and
Yeah,
Bishop's.
that was when that development went back there.
Yeah. It was
They
all
were
part of
supposed to
that.
cut the trees and they cut all the trees out.
Yeah, they encroached quite a bit on it.
Yes.
That's it, and it was different application.
But
Just more to be aware that you're technically next to a park and an agricultural district. And the flood, in this area does flood quite a bit, like every year, the entire lot has getting water.
Yeah.
It used to, it doesn't now.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the amount of rain we had this year, if you go back there and look, it's,
Somewhere they must have done some work downstream, I'm gonna have to guess this. Because that, if you had a canoe, you could have canoed.
Oh, yeah.
There was that much, serious, there was that much water in there.
a lot of it changed.
It used to flood, but then, at one time, I remember this going back several years, it flooded really, really bad. And apparently in back of where the theater is over there, I think I mentioned this to you, Al,
Yeah.
there was a beaver dam they built. They actually built a dam and dammed the water, and it built and flooded like opposite of here that DEC did. But it hasn't, I'm guessing they must have done some work downstream,
Yeah.
shipbuilders or something, because it hasn't flooded like that over several years now.
Yeah, like you said, the floodplain was drawn at some point, and we demonstrated it's outside the flood.
Right.
Yeah.
We're doing the analysis right now over the entire area, the entire contributory area, and it just doesn't support the FEMA floodplain, the way it is drawn today. And so, it's just gonna be numbers, because so much can get across Ridge Road and Empire and Old Ridge and Empire and those culverts and that sort of thing. So maybe it had been a change there, maybe there was detention. We know that there's a lot of development to the south and there's detention and that sort of thing that may have assisted with that. So, and there just may have been a big mistake too in the calculations. So, but if it flooded at some time, it certainly hasn't done it recently with some pretty serious storms that we've had.
Right, is it
So,
associated with the Country Max, they had to reroute the stream.
Yeah.
on the back side of the lot.
Yeah, they did a letter of map amendment. They didn't actually change the floodplain, which is what we're doing.
Well, they rerouted the street.
Yeah,
I think the plan was we were gonna time where they, in the back where they rerouted it and bring it across the property there, remove it from that creek that's like closer to the front of the property, so it'll be more in the middle, which will give you a good delineation between the commercial and the residential.
Is that about where the, you show a storm line on the?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
If you look at the, I'm becoming an expert on stormwater retention. If you look at where the stormwater retention pond is, the game plan is to bring the line from the, where it comes off of Country Mix and through a pipe into that stormwater retention pond so that the runoff will go there. And then that'll hold it, and then there'll be another pipe that'll then take it to the back of Kuchar's property and tie it over there. They'll then take it, you know, up to Ridge Road. So, and with the way that he would have to rework the land to create the stormwater retention pond, it's so large, a lot of the fill would then be utilized to provide that added depth of the property so that none of this would then be susceptible to flooding at that point, because it would be built up.
and we purposely made that proposed stormwater management facility very large. Well oversized for whatever runoff we'll have, that's for sure.
All right, so, what do you feel? Residential to the back and some commercial to the farm along the highway?
That's my thing.
I feel the same.
When you say residential, is that apartments or
Yeah.
single-family homes? Apartments,
Mark, you okay with that, son? So give them a direction, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Residential below, and some commercial along the front, like you're saying, 40 units or whatever.
And we'll work with the town to see the mechanism of how to make that happen. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
The only issue I've got, I've mentioned this when we met, is coming up out of there, yeah, obviously gotta change the grade to have a flat spot. You can't, you park down a hill going uphill to come out, 'cause that's down, right off the road, it immediately drops going down.
So let me ask you a question. You mentioned that 100-foot buffer. Would it be possible to have somehow from Shoecraft, because you said that borders the back country mix, somehow to gain access to that property then off of Shoecraft too?
That's, when we were talking, I was hoping there was some way of a connection back. I don't know who has the property, is it?
Well, he's saying that the town owns it, it's a park, but they cut all the trees down. The neighbors did.
Yeah, it belongs to that subdivision. That's,
I looked at Country Max and there's no room behind the back of
Nothing
actual
there.
Country Max
No,
The back goes over drops.
to build a road. Now, as far as the access to Ridge Road, we're gonna be, our proposed front commercial building is gonna be up at that level. So when we come up the
why
hill,
you put
there's
it up
gonna
at
be.
that level though? No, how can you put it up at that level? The road?
Oh, yeah, because
It
the,
drops right down, Al.
I know, but the front of the whole front of that would be filled so that the building itself, that front building, it would be level with the road or just about a foot above it. So when you come up the hill, then you level off onto a flat area before you enter Ridge Road. So it's just a matter of earthwork and design and making sure you have the percentage of slopes and that sort of thing.
But that's gonna, yeah, I agree, and that's the way I visualize it, but how, you're gonna put a lot of fill in there.
And the second level in the back, where we have the
Because it
parking
drops
lot,
immediately.
where we have the parking lot in the back, it's a lower level from the top, so you have the upper level, and then you have a lower level, like a walkout. If you take a house, and you come into the parking lot in the lower parking lot, and then you have shops there, in the lower level.
At a smaller scale, actually, is what you're talking, would be similar to the private used to be Rochester linoleum and tile.
Oh, yeah.
The front is, you know, where it is, you know, it's a little bit lower to the road. Parking is in the front, and then in the back, it drops off, and there's storage, whatever they use it for, underneath in the back. So, I mean, that could be done, yeah. But
Sure.
This is actually.
what's that?
You're gonna be almost terraced, after you do the commercial buildings by the time you
It
do the residential.
will be.
Yeah.
And the challenge here is that we need to get back to the residential, so you can't just drop right off the road, because then you can't access the road safely. So you really have to, you know, but that's engineering, and we know what to do there.
Josh, are they gonna have to deal directly with FEMA on this, or?
The town would have to sign off, I believe, on some of the application material that they're pursuing.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, you're floodplain in this year for the town, right?
And that was part of the presentation that we made to the town, the calculations that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice to reference, but we don't.
But, from what I understand, there's some grant money out there also for converting ag. Because this property is in that, revitalization area for the town as far as commercial development along Ridge Road in that area.
Yeah.
So that was another impetus behind that. And then also, you know, I find that intriguing what you said about that 100-foot strip that's supposed to be a park. Because one of the questions that came up when we had that meeting was if there was some way to get an egress off of Shoecraft. I mean, yeah, excuse me, saying Shoecraft.
That's what I was hoping we could come up with, but
I don't know if it's something that could be explored further with the town, I guess we could talk about it. Josh?
I think if it's truly designated parkland, it would require alienation, which would
yeah.
be an act of the state legislature, which is, that's a lengthy, very
Process.
involved process.
And that was an issue with the piece in back of the plaza over here, where Van Indian Drive comes in. You ever make it home?
No, it's an interesting concept. I mean, it definitely has to have a floodplain issue nailed down, but,
Yeah.
because otherwise, the most expensive properties are in the floodplain right now, it's the map is drawn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the people that would be building these places, they would be paying more for flood insurance than they would for a mortgage on the house.
Wow.
Yeah, we know.
It's one of the reasons why we said it was a long-term investment. Working on that, and they spent quite a bit of time and money in doing our due diligence. But we have a lot of confidence that it will only benefit that parcel. It will benefit a lot of the other properties that presently are considered in the floodplain.
Especially on Empire, actually. Alvarez will not be in it any longer.
Is there?
Well, it goes back up to the town parks with the baseball fields.
Yeah, that's going to affect that. It'll affect
That was
the-
that area that the project got shut down because of the wetlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Design partway through.
I
They clear cut the whole area and then got shut down because of the wetlands.
I think something else you might want to check too. I'm just thinking that a project on Salt Road, what's that? It's supposed to start yet. Housing development.
Carolyn?
Aberdeen Estates.
What is it?
Aberdeen.
Yeah, Aberdeen. They had one entrance going in there for the houses, 50-some houses.
79.
But then they were required, then they were required for another. So I don't know what the requirements are for something like this. It's a private drive. I don't know how that works.
We're under the requirement for 2 entrances.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at. Are you?
Yeah, we're-
70 residents or less.
All right, good. I was just gonna say something better
Yeah.
check.
Yeah, we're exempt from that, right?
Okay. All right, so because it's a private drive, Al, is that the reason?
No, it's because of the numbers, number of units.
How many units?
We have 40 apartments.
Okay. All right, okay, you got it figured out then. All right, good. Okay. I guess you got a direction ahead right now, right?
Yeah, thank you, this is
We do, thank you.
very helpful.
All right, good luck with it.
Thanks. See you soon.